a noted tax expert and the keynote speaker for the evening. We are also grateful to all the associations, the Bombay Chartered Accountants Society, the Borivali Sanskritik Kendra, the Cosmopolitans, Walia College of Commerce and Arts, Indo-Japanese Association, Interact Foundation, Investor Grievances Forum, Rotary Club of Bombay Pyre, Sydenham Institute of Management Studies, SIMSRI, the Eddie Shroff Memorial Trust, the Chamber of Tax Consultants, and the Nani Palkhivala Memorial Trust. So a warm welcome to all of you. I would request Mr. Abhay Mehta, President of Bombay Chartered Accountants Association, to formally welcome and introduce the speaker. Thank you.
Respected speaker for the evening, Mr. Homi Ranina, galaxy of luminaries and other virtually assembled participants, office bearers of all the associations which are participating in this public budget meeting, a very good evening to all. I feel honored to be part of this public meeting on Union Budget, representing as President of Bombay Chartered Accountants Society, being one of the organizing associations. We witnessed Honorable Finance Minister delivering her budget speech yesterday and introducing the Finance Bill 2022 in Lok Sabha. The focus of this year's budget has been capital investments and increasing domestic manufacturing capacities and capabilities. Both these steps seems to be considered to avoid any inflationary pressures on the economy. The government's focus on Atmanirbhar Bharat has been given a greater impetus. I do not want to deal on the pros and cons of the finance bill, since we have assembled to listen to the expert analysis by respected speaker, Mr. Homi P. Ranina. I am privileged to introduce today's speaker, Mr. Ranina, who has been addressing public meeting on Union Budget organized by Forum of Free Enterprise jointly with other associations since past many years. By profession, Mr. Ranina is a practicing lawyer specializing in taxation since 1978. He is also a qualified chartered accountant and a fellow member of the ICA. He is renowned for his expertise on direct tax laws and exchange control laws of India. For 11 long years, Mr. Ranina served on the board of RBI as a director representing Government of India. All these years, he was also the chairman of the Inspection and Audit Committee. Mr. Ranina was also appointed by the Government of India as a member on the Board for Regulation and Supervision of Payment and Settlement Systems. He is currently the president of the Forum of Free Enterprise, which is the lead association organizing today's meeting. He is also the president of the Eddie Shroff Memorial Trust. These trusts have been promoting the cause of liberal economic policies for the past several decades. He is one of the founder trustees of the Nani Palkhivala Memorial Trust, which was set up in 2003 to promote the cause of civil liberties and protect human rights. Mr. Ranina is a prolific speaker, having addressed professional seminars in India and abroad on taxation, foreign exchange laws, foreign collaborations, and joint ventures. His views are also sought regularly on television channels. He has authored publications of ICAI on corporate taxation handbook and taxation of non-resident Indians. He also contributes a regular column for NRIs in the Khalij Times, a leading newspaper of the UAE. With this introduction, I now request Mr. Homi P. Ranina to enlighten us on the provisions of the budget 22-23. Thank you, sir.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I thank all the organizers who have come together to organize this budget meeting. It's a momentous occasion, considering the fact that India is going through a difficult time, like many other countries in the world, after the pandemic that the world has faced for the first time. This budget is meant to put the economy into a higher trajectory of growth. And the entire emphasis of the finance minister and the government is to make sure that we reach a certain target within the next 25 years, when India will complete 100 years of being an independent nation. It is this roadmap which has been set out in the budget proposals. The speech of the finance minister, perhaps one of the shortest in living memory, which I personally think is a very good sign, and a short finance bill, which means that the government does not want to tinker with the tax regime, but to make it stable and to make it more certain. These are the two basic features which come out from yesterday's budget speech of the finance minister. All of you have heard her speech and read about it in today's newspapers. Generally, the budget proposals have been very widely accepted and acclaimed. And of course, there are other issues which will now take over once the present euphoria dies down. But before I come to the various schemes which are announced by the government, which shows the roadmap for India towards the year 2047, when we will complete 100 years of independence, I would like to very briefly touch upon the budget itself. The budget is a document of receipts and expenditure of the government, but it is very important because it shows the inherent strength or weakness of the Indian economy. Now, if you look at the budget papers, you have the income and expenditure, the revenue and expenditure side of the budget. The revenue side is highlighted by the collection of taxes and the borrowings, and of course, non-revenue income. For example, dividends received from public sector companies or from the Reserve Bank of India, which gives away its surplus funds to the government, or receipts by way of monetization of assets or privatization of the public sector enterprises, which has been started in earnest in the current financial year with the privatization of Air India. I'll just briefly touch upon these figures to give you a flavor of what the budget estimates talk about. The gross tax revenues which are projected to be received in the financial year 22-23, which is going to start from 1st April 22, the gross tax revenues budgeted at the figure of 27 crores 57 lakhs 820 rupees. So what the government is going to collect by way of tax revenues is 27.57 lakh crores, which if you convert into US dollars at the current rate of roughly 75 rupees to a dollar, works out to 368 billion US dollars. So the government of India is going to collect by way of tax revenue 368 billion US dollars from corporate tax, personal income tax, goods and services tax, excise duty, and customs duty. All together, the total revenues will come to 27,57,820 rupees, which is roughly 368 billion US dollars. Now, you will agree with me, ladies and gentlemen, that this figure is abysmally low. And personally, I think this is one of the biggest weaknesses of the Indian economy, that we are not able to garner resources compared to the potential that India has. 368 billion US dollars is, in my opinion, a paltry amount, considering the size of the country and its population and the industrial base which it already has. I may just point out that the largest corporation in the world has gross revenues exceeding 500 billion US dollars. whereas the government of India, with all its powers of collecting taxes, cannot garner more than 368 billion US dollars. So there is something which needs to be done on this front, as a result of which the tax GDP ratio which India has is one of the lowest that which is comparable to other developed countries of the world. Now, if I analyze this figure of total gross receipts of 27,57,820, the main source of revenue comes from the goods and services tax. That is the state of the central government, which is projected at 7,80,000 crores for the financial year 22-23. Of course, this is their share of the central government. As you know, the GST is shared between the central government and the state governments. So the state government will get another 7,80,000 crores, which will be shared among all the various states of India. GST has, of course, been rising. The latest figure of January 2022, as given by the finance minister yesterday in Parliament, is 1,41,000 crores collected for January 2022. And that 1,41,000 crores is one of the highest that we have ever collected. So hopefully these figures will increase in the coming months as the Indian economy picks up. And I'm sure that the GST collection, which has been budgeted for the central government at 7,80,000 crores, will be exceeded by the time we reach March 2023. But the finance minister has rightly taken a conservative and cautious view and given a picture which he feels can be accomplished, that the targets will be met and there'll be no deviation from the targeted figure of 7,80,000 crores. Corporate tax is the next big item, and that will fetch the government of India 7,20,000 crores. So all the companies in India put together will contribute 7,20,000 crores. I may just mention that only 11 companies in India contribute together 46% of the total corporate tax collected by the government. So the rest of the money comes from the lakhs and crores of other companies which exist in India. Personal income tax is the third largest contributor, and that is projected at 7 lakh crores by the present for the financial year 22-23. Excise is projected at 3,35,000 crores and customs duty at 2,13,000 crores. So this is the picture as we see of all the taxes put together. The total amount therefore works out to 27,57,820 crores. Now out of this amount, 41 to 42% goes to the state governments. Because as you know, we have a federal structure. So the revenue is shared between the central government and the state governments. Therefore, 42% of this figure will go to the state governments. And hence, what will remain in the kitty of the central government after paying off the state government shares will be only 19,34,771 crores. So 19,34,771 crores is what will remain with the government of India, the central government, for all the productive and non-productive expenditure which it has to incur. You will therefore realize that the government is in a very difficult fiscal position as far as spending is concerned. The only solution, therefore, in order to finance all the programs which the government has been introducing in the past few years since it came to power in 2014 and thereafter, is to rely on borrowings. Last year, the finance minister was bold enough to come up with a new concept of monetization of government assets. There are crores of acres of land which is lying unutilized, which can be monetized. Then, of course, there are the public sector companies which can be privatized. but these are all slow processes. The only achievement for the current financial year is, as you all are aware, Air India privatization. And the other privatizations are now in the pipeline. But this pipeline is currently moving pretty slowly. Hopefully, by the next financial year, 22-23, we will be able to do a lot more, and the government will be able to collect substantial amount. But again, what the finance minister has budgeted for is only 65,000 crores of rupees by way of privatization proceeds during the financial year 22-23. Again, it's a conservative figure. I'm quite sanguine that this figure will be much higher than 65,000 crores budgeted for, because now most of the preliminary work of privatization has been completed, and therefore the next financial year 22-23 will see a spate of these privatization. The most important being what we are all waiting for is the LIC IPO. If the LIC initial public offering is successful, some analysts feel that the government may collect anywhere between 75,000 and 1 lakh crore rupees just from the LIC IPO. And then, of course, there are many others like Bharat Petroleum, BPCL, and others, which may also be taken into account. So figures will be more, but Finance Minister has taken a very conservative view, a very cautious view in projecting only 65,000 crores as the privatization receipts. The main thrust of the budget resources will therefore come from public borrowings. Now, the total expenditure budgeted for by the government is 39,44,909 crores. Revenues which will come by way of taxes to the central government, as I told you, are 19,36,771 crores. Further amount of around 3 crores will come by way of dividends and profits of RBI. Some money will come by way of privatization. So taking all these figures into account, the borrowings of the government will be 16,61,196 crores. 16,61,196 crores. In short, borrowings are the difference between the revenue receipts and the expenditure. The revenue receipts shortfall will be made up by borrowings from the public at large to the extent of 16,61,196 crores. And this is the figure of fiscal deficit. In short, the fiscal deficit of the government of India is the money which they need to bridge the gap between revenue and expenditure. So the excess of the expenditure over income is the fiscal deficit. And that fiscal deficit for the next financial year is budgeted at 16,61,196 crores, which represents the borrowing program of the government of India. So this is what they will borrow. But when you borrow, it has a cost. That cost is by way of interest. Now, for the next financial year, the interest payable by the government of India on all its past borrowings has been projected at 9,40,651 crores. So just the interest element is much more than the GST which they will get, which I said is 7,80,000 crores, the central government share. So if you look at the budget figures, the interest paid by the government on its past debt on the borrowings will be far exceeding the revenue collected by way of GST. And then, of course, corporate tax, income tax, and other taxes are there, but they will take care of the other government expenditure, which is establishment expenditure, projected at 3,67,000 crores, defense expenditure, projected at 3,51,000 crores, and other expenses which the government has to incur. So the amount which is going to be spent on the projects or the centrally sponsored schemes, what they call, will be entirely financed from the amount of the borrowings which the government is going to have. So what will happen is, Finance Minister says that this figure of 16 lakhs, 61,196 crores is good enough, but I think it's going to be a very substantial borrowing program of the government of India, which in turn will have a snowballing effect, because to that extent, the interest burden on this figure will also be added in the next year's budget. So what I see is a difficult time as far as borrowings are concerned. Interest rates are going to go up, that's for sure, which may hurt Indian industry. But as people will say, Indian interest rates are going up all over the world. Even in the United States, the interest rates have gone up to a very substantial extent. The interest rates going up, of course, has a very adverse impact on the equity market, because to the extent that the interest rates go up in the US, there's a pullout by the portfolio investors from the emerging markets like India, and that is where the sell-off of stocks begins, because they want to take advantage of the higher interest rates available in the US, which gives them a sense of comfort. Therefore, there's always an impact. When interest rates in the US go up, equity markets in the emerging countries start sliding, and there is a sell-off because of the pullout by the foreign institutional investors and private equity funds. So today, Dalal Street has to be worried about Bond Street. The bonds market is now going to play a very effective role in how the stock markets in India will behave. And if the bond yields are today coming down and they're firming up, the prices, they will have a tremendous impact on the equity market in India. Another issue of worry for the stock market is the rising commodity prices, international commodity prices, primarily in oil. Today, the Brent oil crude is being sold around $90 a barrel. It is expected it may go up to as high as $120 a barrel. Hopefully, it may not. It may stabilize around $90 to $100 a barrel. But in case it goes up, it will certainly have a terrible impact on the Indian capital market, as well as on the foreign exchange reserves, which fortunately are at a comfortable level today. For the first time, we have foreign exchange reserves of more than 650 billion US dollars. It will absorb them, but still it will have its impact on the inflation. Because as you know, oil prices going up has a cascading effect on transportation costs, and that transportation cost is then passed on to the commodities and the essential commodities which are consumed by the common man. So inflation is a very big worry in India today. Inflation is a worry all over the world. It's not that India is the only country. Even America is facing inflation at the rate of 5%, which is unprecedented in its history. But inflation is going to be a very substantial problem, especially in India, because of the poverty level. As you know, inflation is a hidden tax. The poorer a country is, the harder the people are hit with inflation. And therefore, the control of inflation is going to be a key factor for the RBI, which is going to come up with its policy sometime next week. So I hope it is expected that interest rates will be firmed up. There will be withdrawal of liquidity to some extent, though the RBI is very keen on keeping open policy as far as liquidity is concerned, so that businessmen get enough capital of what they need. But we are going to go through difficult times in the next few months as a result of both interest rates going up and commodity prices increasing. Now, coming to the policy measures announced by the government. Government has given the roadmap, as I said, for the next 25 years. How will India be in the year 2047 when we complete 100 years of our independence? And I think from all trends, it is clear that India is certainly emerging as one of the superpowers of the world. One of the issues which kept back India all these years for the first 60 years after independence was its poor infrastructure. China became a supergiant in a very short period of time because they built a world-class infrastructure in the shortest possible time. India has its own democratic issues involved, and therefore we cannot work as fast as we should. But still, in the next 20 years, the way the Indian government is progressing today, and I must say to the credit of the present Prime Minister, Shri Narendra Modi, that nobody has done as much for infrastructure development as this government has done. And all credit must go to this Prime Minister. Had this work commenced 20 years ago, by now India would have been in a different league of nations. But this has unfortunately all these years been kept in the back burner. It's only from 2014 that this present government has given the right emphasis on world-class infrastructure development. And today we are already seeing the results, but the main benefits will come in the next 20 years when we truly develop a world-class infrastructure. And therefore the Gati Shakti program, which the finance ministers announced based on the Prime Minister's vision, is to have a complete multimodal transportation system linking railways, airports, seaports, the bus terminals. Everything will now be digitized. The digitization will change the face of this country. Again, the Prime Minister has to be given full credit. Nobody has put as much emphasis on digitization as this Prime Minister has done. And I must say that this is something which would have been welcomed even by Mr. Palkhivala had he been alive today and had he seen the progress that this country is about to make. It is the digitization and the building up of world-class infrastructure which will make India one of the greatest powers in the world. And it's going to happen. People may have some doubts about the progress, the delays. Very often we always say, well, will it happen within our lifetime? The answer is it may not, but it is going to happen and going to happen very shortly. It depends on how young you are. So if 60% of the people of India are below the age of 40, then certainly it's going to happen within their lifetime. And they are going to be the main beneficiaries of this tremendous progress that India is going to make in the next 20 years. So there is no doubt about it that India is on the right path. And because this of the government's focus on infrastructure development and digitization. Another very important focus point is on agriculture. As we are aware, 60% of the population of India is still rural-based, dependent on agriculture. Now, putting more money into the hands of the farmers is a very crucial aspect because it has a direct impact on the economy. Today, if industry has to grow, if the manufacturing sector has to come to go at a faster pace, then it is the farmers, the people in the rural areas, who will enable that to happen. Today, the top consumer companies, FMCG is what you call, are concentrating on the rural areas because these are the areas where there is growth. These are the areas where there is pent-up demand for consumer goods and other industrial goods. And if you put more purchasing power in the hands of the rural masses and the farmers, you double the income, you treble the income. You will be able to then generate that demand which will spur Indian industry. Today, most of the manufacturing companies are working at 60% capacity level. They have to first reach full capacity of 100% and then go in for new investments to increase the capacity. But that will only come when more purchasing power is put in the hands of the rural masses. So government has again very wisely concentrated in trying to improve the lot of the farmers. Now in this year's budget, if you see, 2,57,000 crores are going to be given by way of direct transfers to the farmers, by way of support prices for both the wheat and rice crop for the Kharif and Rabi seasons. So in the next 2 months, 2,61,000 crores is going to go into the pockets of farmers straight away. Apart from that, the government is now, encouraging farmers to go in for different types of crops. One of the reasons for the poverty of farmers is that they themselves have not kept in line with technological changes. Today, most of the farmers still use obsolete methods of cultivation. And if you're going to use all the obsolete methods of cultivation, obviously your productivity will be very low. You see a country like Israel, which is an absolute desert, and they've converted a desert into a garden because of technological inputs. It is the technological inputs which make the agriculture very productive and profitable. So government is now having a system of advising farmers, showing them what type of crops their land can sustain and what type of agricultural produce they should go in for. So today, with most of the farmers who have been just growing paddy or rice are now induced to go in for producing carrots and lettuce and cucumber, which gives them a higher, it doubles or trebles the income that they have. And if you go for organic farming, as the government is now emphasizing very correctly, with no less use of fertilizer and pesticides, but go for organic farming, then again the value of the produce which the farmer will get will be 10 times more than what he's getting today. So it's a three-pronged attack of the government. One is to put more money into the hands of the farmers through a support price, minimum support price, what is called MSP. Second is to give them the right guidance of how to use what type of product can be produced on the soil, the type of soil that they have. And thirdly, give them the technological inputs. If all these three things are done, the farmer's income will not only double, it will treble and even be much more. And when that happens, when more money comes into the pockets of the poor, the farmers, the purchasing power of the rural masses will increase tremendously, which will give a substantial boost to the Indian economy as far as the industry and manufacture is concerned. So farming and the right way, giving the right expertise. And now if you read the budget, they're all talking about high tech, digitization of farming, digitization of land records, using drones to help the farmers, using drones to tell them using satellites to tell them about the weather conditions, when to sow the seeds, when to do the harvesting. Because in the past, farmers had the problem of sowing and then there was a heavy rain or something, the whole thing got wiped out. So with satellite imaging, with drones being used, farmers are now told exactly when to go for sowing, when to do the harvesting, and how to therefore get the maximum produce from the land that they have. So this again is a very important thrust of the government of India. And if you look at the budget proposals, tremendous emphasis is put. Almost 3,91,000 crores have been allotted to the agriculture and rural sector, which will comprise of transportation, connectivity, rural roads, giving them the right technology. You also going to have optical fiber cables being laid throughout the villages of India. Every nook and corner, every village of India will be connected by optical fiber cables. So they will now be able to go in for the digitization in a big way. As you know, today India is the largest consumer of mobile phones. Almost 90% of the people of India today have mobile phones, of which 60% have smartphones. But with the optical cables being laid, with Wi-Fi connectivity being ensured throughout the length and breadth of India, it will completely change the scene of the rural masses. It will also help in education. Education is another area which has been emphasized by the government in this year's budget. Education by having a digital university. Now, most of you may wonder what is a digital university. But the finance minister in a budget speech has said we are going to set up a digital university, which will make sure that the students in the remotest village will have the same level of education as students have in the urban and semi-urban areas. So it is this technological trust which is going to change the face of this country. And I once again like to pay my respects and gratitude to the Prime Minister and to his government for what they are trying to achieve. Because this vision is necessary. Without the vision being there, you cannot achieve what you want to achieve. And this technological and digital trust will really change the face of this country. You know, the 19th century belonged to the countries like UK, where they had the colonial rule. The 20th century belonged to America, which had material prosperity. But the 21st century will only belong to a country which has technology. And digitization is the main thrust of the technology. And India is going to leapfrog from the old industrial age to the digital economy in the shortest possible time. So this is the real strength of this year's budgetary policies which are announced in the budget proposals. There are many other things which have been done, apart from having world-class infrastructure. We have, again, a very competent minister, Mr. Nitin Gadkari. I think he is one of the most promising ministers in this present cabinet, who has achieved phenomenal success in the portfolio of roads, expressways, and highways. What he has achieved, nobody has ever achieved in the past 60 years. So again, his emphasis is capability to make sure that India has the widest network of roads, expressways in the shortest possible time is again commendable. Because once you have roads and expressways, the entire economy stands to gain. Now let me give you an illustration of this. You will say that why should you have roads in rural areas? The answer is that you need the roads in order to make sure that the agricultural produce goes to the market in the shortest possible time. Today, you'll be surprised to know that India is the largest producer of fruits and vegetables in the world. But 40% of that produce is wasted simply because we are not able to move the produce from the farms to the final market in the shortest possible time. There's tremendous potential for agricultural exports. India can achieve nothing less than $300 billion of agricultural exports, provided we have the logistics, provided we have processing facilities, provided we can move the produce from the fields to the final market in the shortest possible time. Now you'll be surprised to know that a small country like New Zealand, which produces the kiwis, the kiwi fruit, they are able to export kiwi fruit to the extent of $20 to $25 billion a year. A small country like Holland exports the flowers which they produce, the most famous flowers, that they earn something like $15 billion US. Now, if small countries can reap the benefits of agricultural exports, a vast country like India can do phenomenal work. Now, we have the most fertile land in the world. If you look at the Gangetic Plain, the area through which the holy Ganges flows, the Gangetic Plain has one of the most fertile lands in the world. Now, if our farmers can be helped to produce the best possible products which are internationally accepted and which have a tremendous value. For example, vegetables like broccoli, fruits like avocado, if they can be produced in India and exported, our agricultural exports itself will cross 300 billion US dollars. For that, you need the right infrastructure. You need logistics. You need food processing industries. You need proper systems of transportation so that the goods can be exported. So the government's emphasis is roads, expressways, ports, seaports. Because again, for exports, you need both airports and seaports. So if our roads and expressways are connected to ports and seaports, then exports can go up to a substantial extent. A small farmer in Nasik grows grapes, but he's today one of the wealthiest in India because his grapes have a tremendous value. He's exporting grapes to France and Germany to produce wine. And he gets a tremendous amount, much more than he would get by selling grapes in India. So this is just an illustration to show how agricultural produce can turn the face of this country and why the emphasis of the government on rural development and agriculture is so important. So I fully support what has been done for the agricultural sector, for the rural sector, with rural electrification, with housing for the poor, with water taps being set up for millions of people, with gas connection being given, electricity being given, telephones being given, mobile connectivity being given, Wi-Fi connectivity being given. India's rural sector will no longer remain rural. It will become one of the most growing areas of the world, and which is good because today people flock to the cities like Mumbai in order to find jobs. Why should that happen? Let there be enough jobs in their own hometowns. So again, the government is emphasizing setting up of small industries, MSMEs, in the rural areas, giving people the opportunity to set up their own businesses, giving them the finance. Crores of rupees have been given by way of short-term finance at very cheap rates. So if you can give them the finance, you give them the capital, you give them the skills, and you make them produce goods. The MSME sector is today the biggest contributor in terms of both industrial production and exports. So again, in this year's budget, several initiatives have been taken to give the right incentives to the MSMEs so that they can bring about growth in their own areas where they live. Every district of India has to prosper. And once that happens, then the whole country will benefit from this type of democratic development. Democracy doesn't mean giving you the right to vote. Democracy means giving every individual an opportunity to prosper, an opportunity to do well for himself. It is this democratization of India which we are now going through. Not just a simple thing of giving you once in 5 years the right to vote, but to give you the right to earn a livelihood, to improve your standard of living, and to make sure that you contribute to the national welfare of the country. Government has, of course, as I told you, have certain constraints. I think what is important is that the government is now to be supported by the state governments. The most important thing which you must bear in mind is that industry is a state government subject as well. It is for each state government to compete with each other and to produce the finest results. Gujarat has been in the forefront and showing to the world what Gujarat can achieve. Maharashtra is also now time to come up. Karnataka is time to come up. So this competitiveness among state governments will be very crucial, because ultimately the central government can only lay down the groundwork, but the state governments have to actually make sure that their laws are streamlined, that there are no bottlenecks, that there is less bureaucracy. And once that happens, industrial growth will take place. The services sector is one of the biggest sectors in India. That is why you find that the goods and services tax has been very successful. And the goods and services tax has also been completely rationalized. Today, small entrepreneurs are finding it easy to take the GST route. Everything is now being digitized. The digitized economy is also being opened up. Banks are now, the financial inclusion is being brought into the banking sector. Post offices are now going to serve as banking outlets. So with millions of post offices all over India covering the remotest villages, the banking sector will now be streamlined. There'll be financial inclusion. More and more people are going to take part into the banking sector. So with the digitization route, more and more revenues are now going to be generated. So while I mentioned to you earlier that the tax GDP ratio in India is very low for the time being, I'm hopeful and sanguine that in the next 5 years, thanks to digitization, the tax revenue ratio will also improve. And that will give more revenues to the government to spend on social development. Social development is primarily healthcare and education. Healthcare has now become the focus. Healthcare is important for after COVID, but now the government has realized that healthcare will be something which has to be now given the right emphasis, because whether it is COVID or whether it's any other illness, millions of people have to be taken care of. Education will, of course, take its own route. With the digitization of universities and with digital education, that will be possible. Even healthcare will be digitized, where a doctor in a remote village will be able to access the best possible medical help, which is given to by a doctor or a surgeon in a city through the video conferencing. Today, as you know, video conferencing is now being used even in hospitals, where a doctor can take advice from an expert anywhere in the world and give the best medical treatment which is capable of giving. So all this is going to change. Exports are going to increase. This year we had phenomenal exports compared to the past years. But even that is not adequate, because we still have a big problem of balance of payments in view of the large quantity of oil that we are now that we are importing. And with the oil prices going up, this is going to have a deleterious effect on our Indian economy. But another form of oil is also needed, and that is edible oil. And edible oil is, of course, again being imported by India. So the government is now encouraging farmers to go into oilseeds production and to concentrate on that so that their income goes up and it helps the country in lowering our dependence on imports of edible oil. Another very important issue is pertaining to the focus of the government in encouraging entrepreneurs to directly procure from the government by using the digital platform. Government, as you know, spends a lot of money. And since government spends a lot of money, in the past, there were undesirable tendencies. Now everything is done through the open tendering process. There's more transparency. A digital platform has been set up. So any entrepreneur, however small he may be, can access the digital platform and get procurement from the government, which has now said that within 10 days, they will make sure that all the bills are being paid. And the earlier problems which people suffered when they had dealings with the government will no longer be there. So all these are exceptionally good, sound policy measures which are being taken. And finally, I come to the most important aspect, the green energy concept, which again our Prime Minister made a pitch for when he went to Europe a few months ago. Today, everybody's worried about the global warming. Global warming is going to destroy this planet in the next 50 years if we do not take immediate steps. Global warming is because of hydrocarbons emissions. This government has taken the maximum emphasis to make sure that solar energy, which is available in India in abundant measure, is fully utilized. But that needs a lot of investments. Investments have to come in a big way. Therefore, the government is now very keen to ensure that solar energy is given the right impetus. Private sector is asked to contribute towards this, and the green effect has to be now given the right impetus and encouragement. But ultimately, it's for the people to now respond. We have this habit of relying on the government, but the government can do very little. Government can only lay down the roadmap. It can be an enabler, but apart from being an enabler, it cannot really get into business. It is a business of the government to govern, not to do business. It is a business of industrialists to get into business and to take advantage of the opportunities which are available to them. So solar energy, solar production, one of our largest corporations has now given a vision of introducing green hydrogen. Green hydrogen is going to be the future fuel of the world. It will completely destroy the fossil fuel, which is polluting. And that fossil fuel, which is polluting, has to now be discarded in the next few years. India has given a commitment that it will go green by the year 2035. And this government is therefore very much concerned about this and needs to make sure that the green energy is now encouraged. But ultimately, it is for the people, the industrialists, the businessmen, to go in for green energy and to make sure that they use less and less of fuel. Again, the use of electric cars. This is going to happen in the next few years. Scrapping of old cars, scrapping of cars which are using the polluting fuels. All this has to take place. People must cooperate. If the people are not prepared to cooperate with the government, I think we ourselves have to blame for the ills of our country. So this is where the vision of the government lies. This is where democracy has to play its role. People have to now respond to government initiatives. And once that is done, the government will be able to succeed in whatever it has in mind. One other issue, to make India independent, to make India the manufacturing hub of the world. Today, if you see in this budget policy statement, defense has been opened up to the business community. They have said 75% of all business, all defense procurement will be done from Indian companies. And our dependence on imports for defense will now be therefore reduced. So again, there's a tremendous opportunity which Indian entrepreneurs have. India is a land of fabulous opportunities. Sometimes I wonder when industrialists complain, why are they complaining? There is so much to do. So much ease of business has now been brought about. But you must have the vision to do it. So in defense manufacture, green energy manufacture, transportation, logistics, all these are fabulous opportunities for Indian businessmen. It is for them to grab these opportunities as they come. India has been looked upon worldwide as the one destination, investment destination nobody can ignore. FDI, foreign direct investment, has increased in India substantially in the last 7 years. People are looking at this country not only for its natural resources, but for the fact that we have the second largest pool of technically skilled manpower in the world. But that manpower has to be upskilled. continuously. So again, the skilling program of the government of India is meant to make sure that the young, the unemployed, we are able to get the right opportunities. One of the criticisms is that there's a lot of unemployment in India. And secondly, that there are a lot of disparities of income and wealth. This criticism is valid, but ultimately it's for the people to skill themselves. So the government has set up several institutes, technical institutes, digital institutes, where people can skill themselves, improve their skills, upskill themselves, get into areas which are now today the need of the hour, and then improve their own standard of living. So skilling is very important. And again, the government's emphasis on skilling is very, very important. Coming to the direct tax provisions, they're very few in number. Some of them are, a lot of amendments have been made, but they are more of a technical nature. They have made amendments, for example, to tax cryptocurrency, crypto assets. 30% is the rate which is provided. It's going to be ring-fenced. No losses can be allowed from any other source to be set off against the profits of the crypto assets which are sold. So 30% tax is now going to be the new thing. They have also introduced measures to allow people to file their tax returns 2 years from the end of the assessment year after paying some additional tax. If you file a return within 1 year, you pay a 15% additional tax. If you file within 2 years, it will be 25%. Between 1 and 2 years is 25%. So this is just a provision to make sure that litigation is reduced. People who have not reported their income are given the facility to report it even within a period of 2 years from the end of the assessment year. Certain measures are being introduced to streamline tax evasion provisions. For example, under Section 68, where there's a provision which says that any cash credit is to be treated as your concealed income, there they have made a provision to say that when you say that you've received a loan from somebody, then that person also will be required to prove the source of funds from which he gave you the loan. So these are some of the measures done in order to tighten the tax base and to avoid tax evasion. One of the ways by which the government can increase its tax revenues is to come down heavily on tax evaders. Because when the rates of taxes are so low, then tax evasion cannot be justified. Let us not forget that way back in year 1990s, the rate of taxation was 97.75% on income over 2 lakhs. And now it has been brought down to as low as 30%. Corporate rate tax has been brought down to as low as 15%. Nowhere in the world has the rate been so low as it has been today. So the government has done its bit, but it's now for the people to respond. And I would like to urge everyone from businessmen to young people that grab these opportunities, skill yourself. Don't expect jobs to come your way. You have to make yourself employable. There are millions and millions of educated people who are unemployable today because they do not have the skills to be able to perform when they join a company or a factory. So self-employment is going to be the new mantra, not taking up jobs, but self-employment is going to be the key for the young if they want to come up and prosper in life. And this is where the opportunities are now going to increase and multiply. Go into areas where there's a need for you. Don't go into conventional areas. So all those old degrees of doing a commerce course, science, BSc, BA, BCom, they have no value today. You have to be specialized, you have to get a certain skill, and you have to be self-employed. The COVID period has shown how people have prospered even during difficult times by being self-employed, by working from home. They have made more money than they were making earlier. So it depends on every individual to take advantage of all the opportunities which lie ahead of them. I would like to end this budget talk by saying that this budget proposals have laid the roadmap. They are given a vision. They are going to achieve. in the next 5 years what no other government has achieved in the past 60 years. We will have a world-class infrastructure, and all the benefits of that will now flow to the people of India. It is for the people of India to take advantage of all these opportunities that come their way. And hopefully this will happen, because we Indians are known for our entrepreneurial skills and abilities, and we will rise to the occasion. So this is a country which, as Lee Kuan Yew once said, the former Prime Minister of Singapore, who made Singapore into a world-class city, he said, India is like a sleeping giant which is held in chains. Because all these years, for the first 60 years, we were held in chains. There was this control, this license, that license, all that has to go and is now going. Laws, obsolete laws have now been abolished. Things have been streamlined. All the regulations are now been removed. The laws have been decriminalized. A lot of things have happened in the last 4 years. Now this giant has to strike the world. So I have no doubt in my mind that this budget lays the foundation, the cornerstone of a great, vibrant economy. And by the 2030, India will certainly emerge as the most important, the superpower of the world in terms of digital economy. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for the masterly analysis. I have been hearing the speeches of Mr. Ranina for many, many years, and today was one more such occasion where we had heard from him so many vital aspects which are connected to our economy. Sir, you have dealt with the macro aspects of the budget in a very, very detailed manner, yet crisp manner. In a very limited time, you have covered so many things, and you have explained so many things to us that probably it would have been not possible for anyone else to cover up such a ground in such a short time. It requires that master analysis, master ability to cover up this thing. The positivity which you have put up across about the future of the country is certainly something which we are all looking forward to. So you said that within next 5-7 years, India is going to achieve something which we have not achieved in last 5-7 decades. So this is something where the young generation will be very much keen and will be surely participating in the future of the country. I am sure that the words of wisdom which you have put up will be of a great help to the young generation. At the same time, sir, you have also been very, very clear in your approach when you said that many of the things which need to be done further. So you have given some good suggestions also. I am sure if the proper authorities listen to the advice, the golden advice which you have shared, I am sure the journey will be even faster and even better. On behalf of all the organizations, Forum of Free Enterprise, Chamber of Tax Consultants, Bombay Chartered Accountants Society, Investors Grievance Forum, and all other organizations, we are really indebted to you, and we express our sincere gratitude to you for sharing your words of wisdom with all of us, sparing your valuable time, and sharing your great years of experience and masterly analyzing these provisions. Also, you dealt with some of the critical provisions of the direct tax provisions, of course, in a very, very summarized manner, but that was sufficient for us to understand from you. Sir, on behalf of all the organizations, we express our sincere gratitude to you, and we look forward to many more such sessions from you in years to come. And of course, hopefully in a physical manner. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir, for your wonderful talk.
Thank you. Thank you. Shall we close the meeting?
Thank you, sir, for your wonderful talk.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Arina. It was nice to hear you
Thank you.
on the growth of India. Thank you.
Sir Anina, this is Darshana Vasa is my sister. She's the president of the Rotary Club of Bombay PR.
And you were the director with Dad. We remember
I-
that.
You did not design Oxford Chemicals, yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir. We
Thank you very much.
call the meeting to
Thank
close.
you. Your speech was
Thank
very
you.
good.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank
Take
you.
care. Take care. Take care, everybody. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Bye.